Welcome everybody to the first council meeting of the year, 25% in of the term for this council. Yarra Council acknowledges the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung people as traditional owners and true sovereigns of the land now known as Yarra. We acknowledge their creative spirit Bunjil, their ancestors and their elders. We acknowledge the strength and resilience of the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung, who have never ceded sovereignty and retained their strong connections to family, clan and country, despite the impacts of European invasion. We also acknowledge significant contributions made by other Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people to life in Yarra. We pay our respects to elders from all nations here today and to their elders past, present and future. We have all the councillors in attendance and all the relevant officers. Leave of absence, Councillor Wade.
Yes, I would like to apply for a leave of absence for the date of the first meeting in April.
Second Tuesday in April.
The second Tuesday in April, that's the one.
Thank you. And we've got an announcement from Councillor Mackenzie.
Thank you, Mayor. As I have discussed with you previously, pursuant to the councillor candidate policy, I am notifying that I've been selected as the Labor endorsed candidate to run in the state election for the seat of Richmond. I'm really excited to have been selected by my party. Look, I know this community has really welcomed the back to basics approach that this council has taken since 2024, and those are the principles and values of listening to the community and delivering for this community that I hope to bring into the Victorian Parliament and into the Victorian government. Councillors are not required to resign while they're candidates, but there will be a time towards the end of the year where I will take a period of leave, and I will liaise with you, Mayor, and the CEO about when it is most appropriate to do that. I'll have more to say about my candidacy as we get closer, 291 days in, but until then, I'll continue in the role as the Yarra Bend local councillor, doing exactly what I'm doing here, while also asking the people of this area to support me in this next step to represent our community. Thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie, and good luck to you and all the candidates. Councillor Wade.
Sorry, I'm just skipping back to the previous one.
Yes.
I thought we needed to vote to approve leave. That's what I was expecting to occur.
Yep, okay, we can do that. All those in favour of granting leave of absence to Councillor Wade for the April council meeting, please raise your hand. That's unanimous. Councillors, I'm going to ask you all a question. Please respond, I do, to the following question if you have no conflict of interest. Do you declare you have familiarised yourself with the matters being presented to the meeting and that you do not have a conflict of interest? I'm going to do it in alphabetical order. Councillor Aston.
I do.
Councillor Crossland.
I do.
Councillor Davies.
I do.
Councillor Gomez.
Mayor, I'm foreshadowing that known as a motion 8.2. I'll be stepping out of the chamber for...
You've got a conflict of interest for 8.2. Thank you. Deputy Mayor Harrison.
I do.
Councillor Ho.
I do.
Councillor Mackenzie.
I do.
Councillor Wade.
I do.
And I do as well. Confirmation of the minutes of the December, 16th of December meeting. Would anyone just like to move that? Deputy Mayor Harrison, anyone want to second that? Councillor Crossland, all those in favour, please raise your hand. They are passed unanimously. We'll move right along to question time. First question is from Herschel Landis. Can people please turn their phones off or put them on mute? That would be great. Thank you very much. Herschel, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor. I refer to a recent VCAT decision that overruled Council's refusal to grant a rooming house usage application for a property on the corner of Victoria Street and Hoddle Street. The refusal of this usage application, as opposed to development application, went against officers' advice relating to the key planning issues, namely the provision of diverse housing within an activity centre and the proximity to public and active transport outcomes. The application sought only to be able to use the building as a rooming house, noting that any subsequent internal improvements were not subject to a planning permit, but at all times subject to strict building controls. Further operation of a rooming house is also subject to council registration. The application was triggered by the size of the building. During the hearing, objectors singled out members of the public unrelated to the matter with defamatory allegations, and one objector was quoted in The Age do you really think Victoria Street needs a rooming house for junkies and homeless people? The VCAT member found that a rooming house appropriately responded to the site and policy context of the area and represented a reasonable outcome. He found that the amenity impacts were not unreasonable. He granted a usage permit, albeit with conditions that were always open to councillors to add in a planning decision process. Council's grounds of refusal had been prejudicial, spurious and not planning considerations. Making assumptions on who or may be living in the building are not planning grounds. Claiming that a rooming house would have an adverse effect on the amenity of the local area was deeply prejudicial. My question goes to whether council has made a rod for its own back, that in refusing a household usage decision on spurious grounds that were doomed to fail, as the Mayor noted quite correctly, has only added to the government's perception that the council cannot be trusted with the power to make housing decisions. Given the disregard of planning principles, the prejudice towards who or who may not want to live in Richmond, disregard towards the low-cost housing opportunity, hasn't this council simply provided a bona fide evidence to the critics of local councils, including developers, that the state government, not councillors, should be the sole determinant for housing planning decisions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Landis. It's quite a rhetorical question. The planning general manager is not here tonight, so I'll take that some of your question on notice, and I'll ask her if she can respond properly via email. I'll just say a couple of words because you did direct some of your question towards councillors. So I have to say that I would draw the opposite conclusion to what you drew, because because of the decision that the council made, even though I disagreed with it, in terms of going to VCAT, what we got out of that was a better outcome for the future users of that site, the homeless site, rooming house, bigger rooms. Some of the rooms originally were the size of police cells. They were no bigger than Barwon prison cells. So that shows that when you have a democratic discussion around planning, with all the councillors arguing, and sometimes we get it right, you'd know as an ex-councillor, many times we get it wrong, the community has input. When you have a democratic process around a planning application, almost invariably you get a better product. If we hand over our planning powers to the state government with no input from the community, I think we're not going to see any social housing. We're going to see height before and profits before the needs for the community. And I think it's really, really important, and this is an example of it, of where we need democracy around planning decisions as we double our population over the next period. But obviously, you know, let's agree to differ on some of those points. But thank you for your question, and I'll move on to the next one.
Sorry, can I ask a question here? Mr. Landis has raised a number of questions there, or made a lot of statements there, which I think is attributing to councillors that were actually not made on the evening of that Planning Decisions Committee meeting. So I'm just wondering if that is permitted under the rules, that he's attributing things to councillors which I do not believe were stated on that night, and there is no recording of that meeting.
Yeah, maybe I've misunderstood, Mr. Landis, and please correct me, Herschel, if I've got this wrong. I think you were referring to a member of the public, not a councillor, and that person was interviewed in the Age newspaper. But you're not, just for the record, you're not suggesting any councillor here made comments of that character. Yeah, thank you. The next person is Rachel Cramp. Rachel's not here. We'll move on to Shane Delphine. Welcome, Shane. You didn't have to come far.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, councillors. My question tonight. The problems with synthetic turf have been, again, recently highlighted in the media. Problems such as the surface heating to between 70 and 80 degrees on a hot day, exposing anyone using the surface to significant risk of burns should they accidentally come into contact with the surface. 2 proposals for the installation of synthetic turf were in Yarra were funded in last year's budget. As YCAN pointed out in its budget submission last year, these proposals for the use of...
Shane, sorry to interrupt. Could you just move your face a little bit
Yeah.
further back? You're coming across extremely loud.
Yeah.
Thank you, Shane.
These proposals...
That's no better. If you
No, it's not better.
Yeah.
These
Just don't lean towards the microphone.
Yep.
Yeah.
These proposals for the use of synthetic turf were made without appropriate community consultation and without a proper risk-benefit analysis. For example, how will the legal risks around someone becoming injured on a synthetic turf surface on a hot day, does that expose the council to legal risk, for example? So looking forward, will council commit to the development of guidelines regulating the use of synthetic turf in Yarra, similar, for example, to the guidelines already in place in the city of Marybeck? Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. Sam Hewitt's going to respond to that, and I'll say a couple of words too. Mr. Hewitt.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Shane, for your question. You're right, Council's designing two synthetic projects as part of this year's Capital Works program, one at Kevin Bartlett Reserve and one at Atherton Gardens. Both underwent the initial stages of consultation recently, with more consultation planned as the projects progress. There's currently no plan to develop guidelines for the regulation of synthetic turf in Yarra, but Council may choose to include this in its budget for 26-27 as it considers the city's priorities for next year. And like you did last year, you may elect to make a further submission in May when the draft budget is released for community consultation. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. I just want to add something because the Deputy Mayor has been very responsible for the Richmond synthetic turf and pushed it through last year's budget. And I've been, I suppose, equally responsible, in inverted commas, for the one just next door here at Fitzroy, which may or may, both of them may or may not proceed. So I think I need to explain a little bit about the context. It is true that probably 0.0000001% of climate change on this planet is because of synthetic turf, and it is true they get a little hot sometimes on people's feet. But when you play on a synthetic ground, you always wear shoes. And the reason that synthetic grounds are used in football and many sports, hockey and all sports all over the planet, is that it allows 24/7 access to kids to play sport. We have a situation on the 3 estates here in the city of Yarra where there is huge disengagement with official society. There's a lot of unemployment. There's a lot of people who aren't engaging with education. There's a very, very successful main avenue or an alternative avenue of the illicit drug industry for a lot of kids. We had a situation a few months ago that literally outside this building, a young gentleman from Fitzroy was shot dead in the head, and in Collingwood last year stabbed to death, both members in the past of the Collingwood Basketball Club. And therefore, I'm not really interested in people sooking about maybe there's a little Band-Aid that they need because they scraped their leg. I want to get kids away from the gangs, away from horrendous situation, and into education, into jobs, and into sport. And that's why I think we need to push this particular project, and that's why the vast majority of kids on the estate and their parents support the project in Fitzroy, and also families in Richmond support the one down in Richmond that the Deputy Mayor Harrison has been pushing very hard. But thank you, Shane, for your question. The next person I've got is Diane Courtney. If you're here, Diane. Diana.
Thanks, Mayor. Thanks, councillors. My question is in relation to a pedestrian crossing. The local area placemaking in the Scotchmere Precinct, the LMP3, was endorsed by Council on the 5th of March 2019. As part of the endorsement, several pedestrian crossings were approved to help address key community concerns about safety and traffic. While most of these crossings have been delivered, one remains outstanding: the pedestrian crossing at Ray Street and Reed Street intersection. Reed Street carries a high volume of through traffic and is an important active transport route connecting Nicholson Street and St George's Road. It is heavily used by people accessing kindergarten, primary school, library and parkland, and the North Fitzroy Arms Hotel is located on the corner of the intersection. This creates frequent pedestrian movement, including children and families, in a high trafficking area. On the 11th of December 2024, I contacted council seeking an update on the status of this crossing. I received a response in January 2025, advising me that the delay is due to a complex design and state government approval process. As Reed Street is a bus route, and that further design changes were being considered following the reopening of the North Fitzroy Arms Hotel, which had temporarily closed for refurbishment. I believe that this change was because the hotel management sought parklet for outdoor dining area. I was also advised by this council officer that once the design is approved, the project will be put forward for funding in the next upcoming budget cycle. Another year has passed. This raises several concerns. First, time frame. It is now almost 7 years since the LMP3 was divorced. While approvals and design complexities are acknowledged, this is a long delay for council-endorsed pedestrian safety measures. Second, safety and evaluation. Traffic and pedestrian safety were key concerns raised by the community as part of the LMP3 process. However, the proposed interventions have these interventions addressed these issues? We do not know. Due to the outstanding crossing, no evaluation of the LMP3 has occurred. It was advised that the evaluation only takes place once all treatments are delivered, meaning there are no assessment of traffic volume, speed or safety outcomes. Finally, accountability. Infrastructure that directly affects public safety should not remain unresolved for a length of time without clear timeliness, transparency and reporting. Where oversights of council projects, where are the measure of the outcomes?
To get to your question.
So the question is, when will the pedestrian crossing be installed? I'd like a defined time frame, and could we have some clarification about when the LMP3 will be measured?
There's only one question allowed, so we'll go with the first question. Sam Hewitt.
Thank you, Mayor. Thanks, Diana, for the question. The preliminary concept work for this pedestrian crossing is underway now. Council will shortly consider its capital works priorities for 26-27 and will be asked to decide which of the many pedestrian safety improvement projects it wishes to design and construct next year. This is certainly in the mix. Some may be constructed next year and some may be deferred to a future year. Thank you, Mayor.
So it's this year's budget discussion. We're discussing it as we speak, so you should talk to your ward councillor about that. Thank you. The next person is Meredith Kefford. Meredith, welcome. And just press that button, please.
This one? Yeah. In August 2025, I asked Council about how the free 1 hour parking trial in Richmond was going to be evaluated. The response then was that a progress report would be presented to Council before the end of 2025 and that would include analysis of a number of data sets, things like parking, occupancy and duration and feedback from local businesses and the public. I was reminded of this when I read in the quarterly report that's coming up later in this meeting that the estimated cost of the trial for 25-26 has more than doubled from $590,000 to 1.5 million. That significant cost increase emphasises the need for a thorough and timely cost-benefit analysis with opportunity for input from all parties. So my question, has a progress report been prepared? If not, when will it be and when will it be available for the public?
Thank you, Meredith. Brooke Colbert standing in for Mary Osman on this one. Can you just turn your microphone off, please, Meredith? Thank you.
Thank you for the question, Meredith. A report will be presented at the April meeting of Council.
Thank you. April.
Thank you.
Yes, of course, yeah.
And just to add to that, I think you'll also see, I think it's about a 350, I think you'll see that there's also an increase in enforcement revenue of about $744,000 per quarter. So we're looking at something like close to $3 million of increased revenue from the new model in terms of how it's all coming together in revenue coming back in. So while there's a small loss or a reasonable loss in terms of 1 hour parking, the return in terms of enforcement with a different structure is actually yielding a higher revenue outcome. Okay.
Thank you. Nick, feel free to email us offline and we'll get the response. Yep, thank you. Nancy Malloy, welcome Nancy if you're here. Could somebody just move the chair for Nancy, please? Oh, yeah, oh, you've got, yep, excellent. Sorry, it's okay. No need. Welcome, Nancy.
Oh, cool, thank you. Thank you, Mayor. Hi, everyone. I'm here tonight to talk again about the Empower classes. Unfortunately, Council is compromising the service delivery and the safety of the members at the moment because they've taken away the support of the second gym instructor. And that was because they have changed the rosters for the gym instructors. So now the afternoon shift doesn't start till 2:15, but the Empower classes start at 1:15. So I think that the roster needs to be changed so the afternoon shift can now start at 1:15 to help out. I've been going to this. I should say too, I'm actually speaking on behalf of the other Empower class members. I've been coming to these classes for over 10 years. They've been rebranded as Empower. Another class member, Martin, who you might know from the Disability Awareness Committee, has also been going for them, coming to them for a long time. And I can assure you that it's impossible for one gym instructor to oversee a class of between 5 to 8 people of varying disability and chronic illness. And today, for example, at Collingwood, we're also divided over 3 rooms. So we need to have the second gym instructor and have that crossover of gym instructors returned so that there's an opportunity for them to shadow the current gym instructor, which is Andrew Chilver. And the classes, you know, they're amazing and they've never run so well until Andrew and Xavier Gleeson have been overseeing them. But they need the assistance of a second gym instructor. Council's talked about extra classes that are being put on, but no one's actually going to these because they're not being overseen properly, because gym instructors aren't getting an opportunity to be trained properly in the Empower classes, and not everyone has the confidence to work with people with a disability. Council's
30
also
seconds.
not meeting its patron to client ratio. So the second gym instructor needs to be returned.
What's your question, please?
When will the rosters change so that the afternoon shift will start at 1:15 and not 2:15?
Just turn that microphone off and we'll get a response for you. Mr. Hewitt?
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks, Nancy, for your question. I'm not sure I can add much more, Nancy, to answers I've given previously and when we met for coffee. And I might just say that Council's Manager of Recreation and Leisure constantly reviews service provision, staffing levels, and the way that services are provided. She's highly competent, and we have full faith that she's making sure that those ratios are being met, that the staff are trained, that the safety of our patrons is maintained. And I'm confident that those services are well used and well needed, and given there's still some capacity for new members, we're confident we've got the numbers about right. But thanks again for your question. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. The next few questions are in relation to Edinburgh Gardens. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take them all one after another, and then we'll get a collective response to the question. So the first person is Greg Spark to ask his question. Welcome, Greg.
It's Greg Spark. Thank you, Mayor, for the opportunity to ask this question. Can Council please confirm that it will address its responsibility to protect and retain the elements of heritage noted as local significance or contributory as outlined in HO 213, and that no site works or site clearance of public land, in particular the public thoroughfares or mature trees, will occur until Yarra can show that the passive, unstructured recreation parklands required to be alienated from the reserve are transferred properly to the lands noted in Schedule 1 of the Fitzroy Edinburgh Gardens Lands Act, 1967.
Thank you, Greg. The next person is Chris Goodman.
I'm the president of the 3068 group. I requested the Heritage Impact Report for Edinburgh Gardens in November when the BSOP consultation was still open. Never got it. I asked again in January. I'm still waiting. The secrecy means we can't understand how you reached that dreadful decision to remove significant elms. How did the process fail so badly? We have never seen scaled plans, so we have to make our own. Now we can estimate there's 1,000 square metres that will be taken out of Edinburgh Gardens. That's not tiny. We congratulate the council for delivering the pocket parks in Budd Street, Otter Street and Maida Street, but in total they are less than what we are losing in Edinburgh Gardens. We can't see the soil report. It's used to justify building a metre above the ground level, and that's led to a decision for a building that's less sustainable, less accessible and less affordable than otherwise. We can't see the tennis club lease because it's commercial in confidence, but you could possibly redact the sensitive information if it is in fact a public club. So in the name of transparency, can we please see the plans and reports so that you can say you have started the consultation with the community beyond the steering committee for this project?
Thanks, Chris. The next person is Peter Long.
Yarra Council has authorised the killing of 3 elm trees in the Edinburgh Gardens that were planted before my grandparents were born. Removing these trees is supported by all except the 2 Greens councillors. Because of its industrial heritage, large parts of Yarra lack historical tree canopy, which makes grown trees like the elms in Edinburgh Gardens hugely important to the community in the midst of a climate emergency and in an environment where an increase in population density means most new residents will not have private green space. The council claims these 3 trees are sick and dying, but 2 independent arborists have disputed that conclusion. A stroll around the park will reveal several of the elm trees appear to be in considerably worse condition, but nobody is proposing to rip them out. The council's urban forest strategy, adopted in 2017, asserts improving the health of existing vegetation is the most effective strategy for mitigating the urban heat island. Canopy trees reduce daytime temperatures between 5 and 20 degrees Celsius, and a 1 to 2 degrees Celsius temperature reduction can significantly reduce heat mortality rates for old and frail people. In a post on official City of Yarra channels, in September 2025, Yarra Mayor Stephen Jolly claimed that his council was doing so well on climate, they had decided to lift the tree canopy target in Yarra from 17% to 21%. However, this was actually a target already set by the council in the urban forest strategy way back in 2017. And I quote, target canopy increase from 17% at 2014 levels to 21.25% total canopy by 2040. That's on page 64. When I raised this disparity in the council meeting in September, the Mayor said, every single one of the statements you put in my mouth I did say and are factually true. Nobody fact checks my things because there's no need to fact check my things because they're true. These three statements cannot all
30
be
seconds.
correct. A few weeks ago, this state hit new heat records. How can the Yarra community be expected to trust that this council has any interest in preparing for this escalating climate emergency when it ignores its own urban forest strategy and the council's statements about tree canopy are factually inconsistent?
Fiona Bell. Welcome, Fiona.
Good evening. Fiona Bell, President of Protectors of Public Lands. All the arborist reports that have been forwarded to you and have been available to the Yarra Council have been analysed also by Dr. Greg Moore, who's an eminent tree expert. And he then wrote a letter to the Minister, which we forwarded to you. That letter was very scathing about the removal of these old elms in the Edinburgh Gardens, and he emphasises the need to keep canopy cover and reduce the urban heat island effect, including for the future increasing population of Yarra. Dr. Moore states that there is no mention of risk assessment or imminent danger in these reports. In short, the arborists consider the tree removal for the development works, not because the trees are unhealthy or dangerous. He agrees that the trees, if properly managed, could have at least 30 years of safe, useful life in them and good amenity ahead of them. And indeed, if properly managed, the trees may have a future in excess of 50 years. I wish we could all say that about ourselves. In the light of these arborist reports, published and stated on the website of the council, is that the trees were diseased and should be removed, and that was reported also in The Age. The question is, does the council still say that these three elms are diseased and therefore should be removed?
Thank you, Fiona. There are two people who haven't registered but want to ask a question about this matter. Yes, sir, come up to the front. Just give us your name for the record, please, and you'll have 3 minutes from the minute you start talking to ask your question.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor and councillors. My name is Terry Knott. I'm a resident and architect located in North Fitzroy. Over the last 40 years, I've served on City of Fitzroy and City of Yarra Urban Conservation Advisory Committees and assisted with heritage advice. I'm very concerned about the effect that the effects of the proposed 3.6 metre high chain wire mesh fence that is proposed to be built around the extension to the tennis courts, if it's to go ahead. They're already in excess of over 100 lineal metres of fencing of this type. I'm also concerned that there's a 90-degree change in direction, which I find is totally inappropriate. I think that the material and the height and the extent of the fence is inappropriate from a heritage point of view to have in your gardens, or our gardens, which should be protected as part of the heritage overlay area. Last year, I sent a message to all councillors asking if something could be done about the design of this proposed fence to improve the aesthetics of it. Councillor Gomez was good enough to send it on to officers, but I have not had any reply. So my question is, what, if any, improvements to the design of this fence will be made by council? Thank you.
Thanks, Terry. There was one other person apparently. Yes? Come. You'll get a chance in a minute. I'll just let this person go first. Thank you.
Thanks, Mayor. My name's Ursula Chandler and I'm an architect and I live and work in North Fitzroy. The councillors were sent an access report done by Visionary Design Development commissioned by the 3068 group. It outlined their concerns about the standard of equal access the football and cricket building meet. Will the Mayor please refer the report to Council's Disability Advisory Committee for review?
I'll take that on notice. The next person, yes, please, welcome.
I'm here to ask Council if...
Sorry to interrupt. Could you just state your name for the record, please?
Oh, yeah, sorry. Emma Farley.
Thank you.
I'm here to ask Council if, in your capacity as our elected representatives, you would accept an invitation to meet with us on the site you're proposing to alter. It's one thing to talk about the park in the abstract, but it's quite another thing to be present in the place these irreversible changes will affect. I hope you'll agree to accompany us on a walk around the tennis courts and to spend time with the old elm trees. We would welcome the opportunity to share our concerns with you in this real-world setting. So, Mayor and councillors, will you accept our invitation to accompany us on a visit to the Edinburgh Gardens?
I can't speak for the other councillors, but I'll make sure that they get a response to you one way or another as soon as possible.
I'll happily
Councillor
accept.
Davies?
I'll happily accept once it's come around. Okay, thank you.
Are there any other questions on Edinburgh Gardens? Okay, Mr. Hewitt.
Thank you, Mayor, and thanks Greg and Chris, Peter, Fiona, Terry, Ursula and Emma for your questions. I will do my best to answer them, and if I've missed it, we'll sweep up the answers, Mayor, in the minutes. Greg, Heritage Victoria was satisfied with Council's proposal and granted permission to proceed with the project with some conditions. Officers are working through those conditions. We won't start any site works until we meet those conditions. And we'll submit this information to Heritage Victoria shortly, but we don't anticipate any barriers to proceeding with the project. Chris, you may have seen I emailed you yesterday and I'm sourcing the information you've requested on plans and reports and so on. And where there's no confidentiality, privacy or legal impediment to releasing the information, I plan to do so. Peter, the removal of trees at Edinburgh Gardens will facilitate the provision of new sporting infrastructure. Council plans to replace trees removed with a significant planting program at Edinburgh Gardens, along with a significant investment in additional street and open space trees across the city to help cool Yarra. Fiona, the independent arborist report references late age and limited life expectancy of the trees and notes the epicormic growth, which the report indicates the trees are struggling to photosynthesise. This, the report says, is a classic stress response to severe canopy loss, disease or chronic damage. Mayor, just in relation to the final few questions, for Terry's email, I haven't seen it, but I'll chase it up, and if there's a sensible fencing change that's possible, we'll look into that, Terry. Ursula, as the Mayor has said, a report to the Disability Advisory Committee will be considered, and if there are councillors, Mayor, who wish to meet with Emma and her group and colleagues on site, I can help facilitate that. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, and thank you for everyone who's asked a question in public question time. We'll now move on to the business reports. The first one, 7.1, Quarterly Community Report 25-26, Quarter 2. We've got two people registered to speak. The first person is Tan Nguyen. Please come to the front, and you've got 3 minutes to make your submission to this agenda item. Welcome, Tan.
Mr. Stephen Jolly, Mayor of City of Yarra, Councillor, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Tan Nguyen. I'm a member of the Executive Committee of VCAV, and I'm responsible for the Community Development Subcommittee. And I also represent Australian ethnic Vietnamese living in Richmond area. I've been here for 45 years, working in Richmond. We note that today that the city of Yarra has two big projects. One is the Victoria Street Gateway, and this is a very successful project. And the second project is the 50 years anniversary marker, which we, the city of Yarra, the councillor have approved. And about the second project, a sum of $400,000 has been allocated for this project. And to date, we've chosen, the city of Yarra has chosen the right project, the right applicant for the marker. And I have no question, but we like to come here to convey our message, the message of the VCA and our local resident, to say thank you to the mayor, the councillors of the city of Yarra, CEO Sue Wilkinson, Vicky, Bruna, and all the staff who help us tirelessly in that project. And we note that in the second week of June this year, there will be two significant events in the city of Yarra. And we will organize the Refugee Week to think of those who were treated unfairly in their own countries because of their skin color or their political view. I think probably the city of Yarra is one of the few city council expressly welcome the refugees coming to the area. And I appreciate that, and we all know that.
30 seconds.
We sincerely hope the council would approve this evening our application for a grant for expenses incurred in the official opening of the marker and the celebration of our 25-year settlement in Australia in this June. Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, everybody. And I believe that our people sitting there, they hear our word conveying to the council. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. The final speaker from the floor is Jeremy Hope. Welcome, Jeremy. And you've got 3 minutes to make your submission as soon as you start talking.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors and officers. Happy New Year. Welcome back to the first of many for this year. Mayor, I want to ground my questions in the council's own figures. The 1 hour free parking trial was originally expected to cost around $590,000. Instead, the council is now forecasting parking revenue between 1.4 to 1.5 million above budget. With strong growth across paid parking, paid by phone transactions and infringement revenue. From a trader and precinct perspective, the question is no longer whether the trial has harmed revenue. The data suggests it hasn't. The real question is whether the trial has improved turnover, visitation and local economic activity, and how we refine it rather than remove it. I'd like to ask some questions on notice, but can officers confirm that total parking revenue is...
Sorry, there's no questions, and this is a submission. There'll be no questions.
I beg your pardon, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay, Jeremy.
Sorry, Mayor, these are just more questions, so do you want me to stop?
No, just try and turn them into a submission. I'm sure you can do that.
Okay. Well, I'm asking if officers can confirm that total parking revenue is currently forecast to be around $2.11 million above budget, despite the 1 hour parking free parking trial being in place. And also requesting that the council has analysed whether the trial has increased parking turnover and short stay visits rather than reducing revenue, particularly on Bridge, Swan and Victoria Streets. I've also noticed that pay-by-phone transactions have increased by roughly 13% year on year, as council assess whether this free first hour is acting as a gateway to paid parking rather than discouraging payment. And infringement revenue is driven by almost 19% year on year. Does the council see this as a sign of higher visitation and demand, or confusion about how to activate the free hour? And if confusion is a factor, wouldn't clearer signage and education be a better response than ending the trial? Yep. So based on the council's own data, revenue's up, compliance is up, and demand appears strong. The evidence now points to refinement, clear signage and education, not removal of a policy that appears to be working. Thank you.
Jeremy, I'm not trying to be bureaucratic, it's just we've got the public question time and then the submissions, and if I let you ask questions, because I know you're doing great work in Bridge Road, then it'll just open up a Pandora's box. I think Councillor Davies had his hand up. You wanted to say something? No? No, okay, got that wrong. No, all good, all good.
Thank you.
Thank you for your submission, Jeremy, and we'll try and answer your questions within the framework of the governance rules. Okie dokie. So now we're back to the agenda item 7.1. I believe Councillor Gomez and Councillor Aston want to move and second it, and we've got two amendments, one from me and one from. We'll do questions in a minute from councillors, and also an amendment from Councillor Wade. So first up, questions to officers. Councillor Davies. Yeah, if you've got a question in relation to this agenda item, yep, please.
Don't forget the officer minor changes.
Yeah. Councillor Davies, please go ahead.
Thanks, officers. Just to lead back to one of the questions coming from one of the earlier speakers, one of the community members, does this report for the 1 hour parking include the local business survey that was anticipated by council for December? Does any of the data include that survey?
I think Catherine Pound is going to respond to that. Councillor Davies. Thank you, Catherine. If somebody could just give Catherine her chair. Their chair.
Thank you for the question. Yes, the April report will include various data that we have that looks at demand, occupation, revenue, and we are gathering different data around businesses as well.
Okay, so just to confirm, it doesn't include this current activity statement, if you like, the Q1, the Q2 report that we're voting on shortly. It doesn't include a local business survey for Victoria Street, for Swan Street and Bridge Road in terms of going out and getting surveys of turnover and those aspects as we see it now. It doesn't include that data.
Thank you for the question. So the report you have now is the community report. So that just reports on standard information that we report on every quarter. There is a separate report that will be put to council in April, which will specifically look at the 1 hour free parking trial and other related matters. And that will include some data around businesses. And I'm just trying to remember off the top of my head, it includes some occupancy vacancy data. Is there anything else we can speak to that will be included in the April council report?
Thank you. Councillor Mackenzie, I'll come back. Yeah. Councillor Mackenzie.
Yep, thank you. I firstly love the great outcomes for our childcare centres. I was wondering about one of them. So Yarra Kindergarten says that there was a saving of $86,000. Is the process that goes back into the budget for next year?
We'll get a response from Mr Hewitt to that one, please.
To that project, or is it dispersed elsewhere?
To that question, yes.
Thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Councillor Mackenzie. What the report says is that it's a saving for this year. Next year, Council will see, and has already seen, its draft capital program, which includes what you need to complete the project. So we're dispersing it this year, and you'll budget appropriately for next year.
Sorry, just to follow up. So it isn't that it's lost from Yarra, there's more coming.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Harrison.
Yes, my question is in relation to the Balmain Street pedestrian crossing. It's been reported that that project has been cancelled, so I just wanted to ask that the office could confirm how that decision was reached, what were the factors behind that, and whether it was an operational decision for the record tonight, please.
Ms Osman, welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the question, Councillor Harrison. The project's been cancelled for a number of reasons. Construction activity associated with the proposed hotel, which has recently been approved under the Development Facilitation Program, is suggesting that there may need to be some traffic conditions changed around that hotel if it is to be constructed. We also have the Cherry Tree Hotel, which is currently being modelled, and there was some work identifying that the project wasn't actually identified as one under the Cremorne UDF. I will say that pedestrian improvements across Cremorne and the municipality will be a focus, and we can have a look at this intersection in the future. Thank you.
Councillor Arston.
Sorry, I had a follow-up there.
Oh, sorry, Deputy Mayor, yep.
So, look, you've mentioned the pedestrian works at Cremorne. Community members, and I think Mr Razos is here tonight, have been raising questions about this. That project came out of a real need for the community, so I'm very keen to see that we get some ideas about what can be done to ameliorate the situation for pedestrians in Cremorne, because I think many of us are asking, if not now, when? Because I appreciate the construction works that are underway there, and there seems to be no end to them. But I'm keen to understand what can be done as part of perhaps the budget process in 26-27, that we actually get some work done there for pedestrians in Cremorne.
I'll take that as a sort of a comment, yeah. Councillor Arston, then Councillor Davies.
Hi. In regards to the increase in parking infringement revenue, can you tell us whether or not we know that's just coming off an increase in parking infringements along the activity centres, or whether it's also out in the broader community across Yarra, say, in residential streets?
Ms Pound.
Thank you for the question, Councillor, and through you, Chair. So overall, the increase in parking infringement revenue compared to previous years is due to a range of factors. It's not, there's nothing to indicate it relates to the 1 hour free parking trial or any of the locations specifically within the trial. There's as I said, there's a range of reasons. When you look at the trends, there's continually year-on-year growth within parking enforcement, which is reflected by a number of trends, including yearly increase in infringement fine amount, which is driven by state government. We're continuing to refine how we schedule and manage our operations with regard to things like increasing major events within the municipality. There's also correlation with year-on-year parking growth and rollout of more paid parking areas over time. So there's a range of factors that are driving the parking infringement fine revenue. Thank you.
Councillor Davies.
Yeah, thanks, officers. I just want to come back to 1 hour parking. Is the pay stay parking occupancy data, in other words, the data, just for people back at home, the millions watching right now, the parking occupancy, in other words, when people park out the front of our retailers on these activity strips, is that data readily available? Like, are we able to access that daily, weekly, monthly?
Ms Pound.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Davies. Yes, we have access to the pay stay occupancy data, and that is some of the data that we can and use, and we will report on in the April council report. Thank you.
Yep, follow up.
Is there any reason why it's not included in this report? Because obviously it does reflect the nature of the 1 hour parking impacts in terms of stay, time of stay, and influencing behavioural change in terms of shopping.
Thank you for the question. And my understanding is the reason it's not in this report is because this is the quarterly community report where we report on standard trends, and we do sometimes add new pieces of information to it based on notices of motions, etc. But so that's why it hasn't specifically been included here. But as I say, there will be a thorough report specifically on that topic.
Just to that point, I just want to go to the Halloween, and this is relevant to the 1 hour parking and the survey data, and in particular turnover or spend growth. In the document, it has Halloween for Nicholson Street. It was able to report, and I think that was in October, that there was a survey done on 35 traders with registering a 31% spend growth. So while that's in this document, why isn't the 1 hour parking, which was promised for December, and we've had 2 clear quarters, why wasn't the spend growth measured and represented in this report?
The CEO wants to respond to that one.
Councillor Davies, as you know, there's the 1 hour free parking trial is a separate piece of work that's been conducted by council under a separate resolution. Just to go back to your question about reporting on pay stay, so pay stay is included in the report as part of the parking revenue income, so that is included in this data. In the quarterly report, the report in April, as per previous council resolutions, will include a comprehensive review of the 1 hour free parking trial. The Halloween event is included because it was a one-off event that occurred in October in this quarter, rather than an event that's been occurring for the entire year.
I just want to add something, just for Councillor Davies, but anyone who's listening or interested, I've been through 88 quarterly reports in my 22 years on the council. It depresses me even thinking about it. So basically what you get in the quarterly report is just an overview of how the things have gone for the last 3 months, the type of information that we're all keen to see about 1 hour parking and everything else for that matter is done separately. So you're never going to get the level of detail that maybe we want on item X, Y, or Z in the quarterly report. But hope that will be coming in April, because it'll be very germane to discussions we have in relation to the upcoming budget, obviously. CEO?
Yeah, can I just add, as councillors know, because as recently as last week we briefed councillors on the 6-month mark of the 1 hour parking trial, so it's well known to council the data that we have at the moment, the impact on income. The purpose of even referencing the trial in this report relates to the finances. It's not about the success or otherwise. It's a statement of fact, because we have to reflect our end-of-year projection based on the impact, the financial impact of the trial, which is not necessarily relevant to the success or otherwise. So it is a separate matter.
I've got Councillor Davies next, but I really want to get on to the substantive motion here tonight. And then after Councillor Davies, we've got Deputy Mayor, and then maybe we can try and move on if we can. Councillor Davies?
I just want to say thank you, CEO, for clarification. I have a separate question that's unrelated to parking. Page 57, payments for property, infrastructure, plant and equipment, $35 million. Can we just get some clarification? Is that $35 million related, directly related, or in part related to the 105 million spent on wages? Is there a correlation? Are they related?
John?
Thank you for the question, Councillor, and through you, Mayor. The amount you're talking about is the cash flow, so it's actual cash paid for investment in capital projects. Some of those capital projects will have wages allocated to them, but mostly that relates to putting things on the ground, so building, creating new roads, new footpaths, things like that.
Deputy Mayor Harrison?
Yes, look, I'm just coming to the Coppin Street intersection upgrades, which the report indicates will not be completed this financial year. Can officers provide a timeline for the completion of this project?
Mary Osman?
Through you, Mayor, thank you for the question, Councillor Harrison. The budget has been allocated for design and approvals for this year, and a budget bid has been put into the draft budget for 26-27.
Okay, thank you. So what we've got in front of us is the officer report with some, there's sort of 3 sets of amendments. The one that's totally non-controversial are just sort of spelling mistakes and so on and so forth. So we've got a mover from Councillor Gomez, and yes. I think Councillor Aston is seconding it. Before you speak to that, I'm going to ask you about the 2 amendments that have been tabled by myself and Councillor Wade. So I'll go with my one first. If we can get...
Sorry, can I just check? So, Councillor Gomez, Councillor Aston, are you moving the officer's recommendation with this alternative amendment? Yes.
Correct. I am moving the officer's recommendation.
With the...
amendments on the screen?
With the slight alterations that's on the screen.
Okay, so We'll start with my amendment. So my amendment relates to the Vietnamese community in Australia. You've seen the amendment. If we can get that on the screen. Have I got a seconder for that amendment, Councillor Ho? So my question to you and to the seconder is, do you accept or not accept that amendment?
I do.
Councillor Aston?
Yep.
Okay, that's incorporated into the substantive motion. We'll now move on to the other amendment from Councillor Wade. Councillor Wade, have you got a seconder?
Do you want me to just say what it is first?
Sure. And also if we can get on the screen as well, please.
So it's for paragraph 3, which is still paragraph 3 in every version, I believe, says endorses the reallocation of capital funds as detailed in table 4 of the report, except in relation to the $520,000 for the resheeting of Elizabeth Street, which is to be reallocated to shovel-ready footpath and drainage renewal projects.
Thank you, Councillor Wade. Have you got a seconder? Councillor Crossland. So again, the same question to you first up. Do you accept this amendment, the mover of the substantive motion, Councillor Gomez?
I do not.
You do? You don't?
I do not.
Do not. Thank you. Councillor Aston?
No.
Okay, Councillor Wade, would you like to move this as a standalone amendment?
Yes, I would.
Okay, well, you've got 3 minutes to speak to that starting now.
So the reason for this is anybody who's kind of gone through chapter and verse of the quarterly report will see that there's $200,000 allocated for changes to Elizabeth Street as they were in the budget. Most people would know that I do not agree with the changes to Elizabeth Street. They're narrowing bicycle lanes, which I think make it less safe for cyclists and for people using the street. And we know that the trial has been really successful in getting more women to cycle, et cetera, et cetera. What is proposed in the quarterly report is to add an extra $520,000 to that project to resheet the whole road as well. In the past, councillors were advised that it would be better to wait until some of the major projects along Elizabeth Street have been dealt with. We know that there's quite a lot of land that Homes Victoria owns that they're going to redevelop soon, including on the corner of Lennox and Elizabeth Street. And as the councillor who represents Collingwood, Southern Collingwood in particular, that section of Wellington Street, which has really, really great bike lanes that everybody loves, had a huge amount of development quite soon after they were installed. I get complaints a lot about the quality of those bike lanes because even though developers are required to reinstate the lanes or the road the way that they were, it never gets reinstated quite the same way. So in the past, we were advised for Elizabeth Street to wait to make any permanent changes until those kind of major changes along the corridor have happened so that any bike lanes, but also the road surface itself doesn't get ripped up. I asked officers for some alternative things that were shovel-ready that could be funded now. I received a list of footpath renewal works, drainage renewal works, and drainage pipe relining programs, which may not be the sexiest things, but what they are projects that will make our streets smoother and safer for pedestrians. And I know my fellow councillors also have a focus on disability access, so renewing those footpaths sooner rather than later means they will be smoother and easier for people to use. I also know that my colleagues have put a lot of attention on flooding and drainage renewal. This brings some of those projects forward to say, hey, look, we're in a climate emergency. We are getting more flooding events. We want to make sure that we have, safe, clear drains, and it brings those projects forward. So they're across the whole city, there's 13 projects. They couldn't all be funded for the $520,000, but a significant number of them could be. It could mean that people could see better, smoother footpaths in their neighbourhoods, better drain quality in their neighbourhoods in the next 4 months instead of later. So to me, it is an excellent opportunity to use that funding.
Thank you, Councillor Wade. Councillor Crossland in seconding.
Thank you. Just briefly, further to what Councillor Wade just touched on, my key concern is there is going to be a lot of development occurring on that stretch of road, and I don't want us to be investing that amount of money for it to then be smashed up in part and then to have to be reinstated in a different manner. My preference is that would come later, ideally funded by the state government, where we have shovel-ready projects at this time that I think are all very worthy to consider. Thank you.
Thank you. Would anyone like to speak to this amendment? Nobody?
I'll speak to it.
Councillor Gomez.
So I hear the commentary put forward by my two fellow councillors. I'm sympathetic to the idea that we should wait, but we could wait forever. My experience of these kind of projects is that there's never a good time to start, other than now. I've listened to the advice of our executives in workshop, and I'm confident that the work that we would put in and the funding that we would put in to resheet Elizabeth Street would be money well spent. I think the overall schedule of projects at table 4 in the quarterly report as presented in the agenda is a good one. I think we can see that it spreads works and projects across the municipality and does important work. Most importantly, I think we've been trying to resolve the long-standing imposition that we put onto the local community in North Richmond with a long-standing trial which has been nothing but problematic in many people's eyes for the bike lanes. So doing this work, doing the resheeting of Elizabeth Street, is basically to start addressing that issue. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak on this matter? I'll say something. This is a transparent and blatant delaying tactic against the will of the people in North Richmond, as expressed in the council election, as expressed in numerous votes of this council, that we want to reverse one of the worst decisions of the last council, was to build a bicycle superhighway at the expense of the local temple, of the local Vietnamese community, at the local business community, of the local community, full stop.
All right, can I call a point of order?
We want everything on that Elizabeth Street bike.
Mayor, I'm trying to call a point of order.
Go ahead.
You just made a misleading comment about this being a project of the last council. It was actually a project of the council before.
The council before. Still the same people pretty much on it. One of the things
Sorry, Mayor, point of order, that is also misleading. There were two councillors that were the same, I believe, yourself and Councillor Stone, that's it.
What is absolutely clear is that you have always supported have always opposed what we've tried to do with Elizabeth Street. Elizabeth Street was putting one section of the population, cyclists, and not all cyclists, by the way, ahead of the community, ahead of the Vietnamese community, ahead of the temple, ahead of local businesses, ahead of people who live in the North Richmond public housing estate. And ironically, it made people hate cyclists. So in actual, those of us who want to expand cycling in Yarra, in fact, last year we spent more on cycling than at any time in the history of Yarra, when you were mayor, when your colleague was mayor, when Councillor DeVetri, the then Councillor DeVetri were mayor. We smashed all of those records, all you three added up together with cycling projects this current financial year.
Mayor, that's misleading as well.
It's
Just
not
another
misleading.
Point of order.
It's not misleading.
Of
You need
all
to look
three
at the facts.
councils put together.
Listen. When I'm talking, if you've got a point of order, make a point of order. But you can't have a second shot at the debate. You're trying to delay a project that we will not, and the community will not allow you to delay.
Mayor, now
if just
the time is not going anymore.
You are debating me. You can't do this. You should know better. You used
I
to
would
be
like
mayor.
to call a point of
Thank
order
God.
to the chair of the meeting. It just so happens that you're speaking. If you'd like to cede the chair to your deputy mayor, you can.
I'm not
and she
accepting your
can
point of order, so thank you for raising it. It's very, very simple. We're going to fix Elizabeth Street. Now, let's say what is being said happens, and a builder comes along and wrecks Elizabeth Street. That happens all the time. I work in the building industry. My God, Multiplex, John Holland, Lend-Lease, that's their DNA. They wreck the local infrastructure environment. And what happens? The City of Melbourne, the City of Yarra, the City of Stonington make them fix it, and they fix it out of their own pocket. And that's what will happen if what the certain people are saying happens. We have to go ahead with the Elizabeth Street change. The community want nothing less. They've been very, very patient. By the way, for those of you watching and here tonight, it's due to happen in April, which is very, very soon. So I think that we've got to just reject this amendment and pass the substantive motion as moved by Gomez and Aston. Anyone else want to speak to this matter? Councillor Aston.
Yeah, I will just address the point that Councillor Wade made in regards to the safety of Elizabeth Street and the officer recommendation in relation to, was it Gibbs or Langridge Street when there was development in Collingwood? Wellington Street, sorry. and the recommendation then not to resheet because of the development. Well, in this instance, we are getting a recommendation from the officers to resheet. And if we're really interested in protecting the safety of road users on Elizabeth Street, then we have a recommendation that resheeting is part of a way to achieve that. So I think that it is very important to move ahead with the Elizabeth Street bike lanes as we promised, and with the resheeting of the road that the officers are recommending as part of that works to improve safety. And to continue with what the Mayor was saying, whenever the state government decides that they are going to do development work along there, and we don't know when that is, they will have to be responsible for restoring that. And hopefully we may have a state member who is able to facilitate that for us. You never, ever know. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak on this matter? Okay, there's no right of reply. We move to the vote. All those in favour of the amendment from Councillors Wade and Crossland, please raise your hand. Councillor Wade, Councillor Crossland, all those opposed, please raise your hand. Davies, Gomez, Hope, Mackenzie, Jolly, Harrison and Aston. That is lost. We're now back to the standard motion with the two amendments. Councillor Gomez, in speaking to it, you've got 3 minutes starting from now.
Thank you, Mayor. I think we've ventilated the issues around the resheeting. I just want to comment on the overall plan and as reflected in this quarterly report. The mid-year review conducted by our CEO and the executive team has found the extra funding that we can now use to accelerate some of these projects. I think that's a very worthy thing to have been done. I know that Councillor Wade has talked about other projects. I expect those other projects will be done in the same way. So I want to thank the officers for doing the work, to give us the opportunity to bring forward some of these projects. On that basis, I commend this motion to my fellow councillors, and I hope you'll support it. Thank you.
Councillor Aston.
I think the thing with assessing interim performance is that there are always going to be things that people are really happy with, and there are always going to be things that people are really annoyed about. And so when you're doing both of those things and everyone's happy about something and everyone's annoyed about something, you're probably doing a pretty good job because there's something for everyone. So I do think that it shows that the officers are keenly interested in making sure that we are putting our funds towards the things that are most useful to the community at this point in time, and exercising due diligence where things are delayed or unable to be moved forward with, that money is moved to something that is equally deserving. That's just part of the job, and it's good to see that we are getting those recommendations to reallocate funding in that way. But it's also important to note that this isn't just a financial thing. This also shows all the things that the council is doing to support the community in various areas and the performance of those as well, particularly when we're looking at maternal health and all those other important things that council does to support the community. So I think that, you know, whether you like the content of the report or not, the fact is that the work has been done. Some good recommendations have been made, and I'm very happy to second this report.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on this motion? Okay, there's no right of reply. There's no debate. We'll vote on it. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Davies, Gomez, Ho, Mackenzie, Jolly, Harrison, and Deputy Mayor Harrison and Aston. Those opposed, Crossland and Wade. That is passed. Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Mr. Nguyen, and thank you, Mr. Hope, for your submissions before. We'll now move on to 7.2, the Alphington Community Reference Group. It relates to motion 21 from last year. Are there any questions? There are no registered speakers. Are there any questions to officers? No. Would the Ward Council like to move the recommendation?
I have a alt motion, just with some minor changes to the officer recommendation. So
have you got a seconder?
Yes, I do have a seconder.
So, yes.
Councillor Gomez.
Councillor Gomez is seconding. Thank you.
Okay. Councillor McKenzie.
Yeah, great. So I'll just start speaking to it. So I'm really pleased to support this motion to establish the Elphington Community Reference Group. When I was campaigning to be on council, one of the things I heard again and again from residents in Elphington was, and I appreciate, I'm sure you heard this from some of your areas too, that they felt neglected or left out or not treated by the rest of Yarra. Elphington does have really unique issues. It's a really growing area, it's rapidly changing, it's experiencing significant development and pressures over a long period of time, and it sort of sticks out at the end of the map. Now, the Elphington paper mills has been a major driver of that change, and while some of the development has happened there, there's still more to come, and that scale that will be there once it is complete of over 5,000 residences and commercial and retail spaces means that there'll be some real questions about infrastructure, open space, traffic, transport. The original community reference group that was established for this old Amcor site was set up because the community and council wanted and needed a space to have these conversations. And this is about bringing that back, but noting that the community, like expanding it to the larger community, reflecting that the development impacts don't stop at the boundaries of the site. I've made a couple of minor changes to it to expand the potential amount of local representatives of local community groups. It is a small area, but there are quite a few there that I imagine will want to be involved with this, but that will be for them to apply, and also just to have the mayor consulted when the CEO is making a decision on who will be in those reference groups. Look, I know that the reference group isn't going to solve everything overnight, but I think it's a really practical and important step, and thank you, officers, for coming with this proposal. It came off the back of a NOM, and I really hope that it helps Elphington residents and that community both feel like and have a genuine voice in our chamber when they can sometimes feel so far away. So I really hope that my colleagues will support this. I don't have anything else to say.
Thank you. Councillor Gomez.
Thank you, Mayor. I echo Councillor Mackenzie's comments. I do like to point out that it is very good when council finds a way to get structured input from the community. I think this is the way of doing it. I'm a fan of advisory committees and resident committees, so I commend this motion to my fellow councillors. Thank you.
Thank you. And anyone else like to speak to this motion? Okay, there's no right of reply. We'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That is unanimous. We move on to, thank you, officers and everybody. We move on to 7.3. It relates to notice of motion, the Tram Route 78, public transport advocacy and disability access priorities. No registrations. Are there any questions to officers? No. Have we got a mover for the officer recommendation? No. Deputy Mayor Harrison. And would you like to second it? Councillor Wade will second it. Deputy Mayor, would you like to speak to the motion? You've got 3 minutes starting now.
I will speak to it. So, look, I really just had one thing to say, which is how truly dispiriting it is to see the lack of progress in relation to the accessibility of public transport in the period since the Council and the Disability Advisory Committee did some sterling work in 2018. It would appear that there has been little or no progress on those recommendations in the interim period. So I am very pleased that we have brought this up and that it is a firm part of Council's advocacy strategy leading into this state election. So we have to keep going with this because our streets and our public transport should be accessible to everyone, and everybody should be able to participate in community life equally. So I think this is a really important thing that we should continue to progress and build on the important work that was done by the DAC and officers back in the day.
Councillor Wade.
Yes, I thought it was worth just taking a minute to call out some of the bits of this report because they really are pretty astounding. The majority of tram stops and all 9 railway stations within the City of Yarra are non-compliant when compared against disability standards. A high-level summary of 112 tram stops that do not have level access is shown in this report. It's all over the city. If you want to catch an accessible tram or train in the city of Yarra, you have to go to the Route 96 on Nicholson Street or one side of Russell Station, I believe. So that's, if you don't live in Fitzroy North, Carlton North or Fitzroy, you have no accessible public transport available to you. We have a mix of rolling tram stops, tram stock. They're not all low floor trams, but really it's the stops that are a problem. Our officers, I think, have done a quite diligent job of trying to order them in some way, which frankly is quite difficult when they're all so bad. Richmond Station has been particularly called out. It's part of a busy sporting precinct. We all know that. There's so many people get off the train there to go to work in Cremorne, and yet their ramps are just almost unusable. Burnley Station, the new AusPost facility, which has a really high number of disabled employees, is completely non-compliant. It's a real problem and it also floods. Clifton Hill Station is a junction for a whole bunch of modes of transport and it is non-compliant. The tram stops on the Route 86 down Gertrude Street and Smith Street were earmarked for an upgrade, but council has been advised, according to this, I had been wondering what had happened, that this project did not receive funding in the state budget and it's currently on hold. So community members have bothered to kind of give insight, say where they want things. It's affecting other projects like the Wellington Street Bike Lane project. We're talking about it in light of where these tram stops are going to go, and yet we don't even know when they're going to get funded. Meanwhile, there are comments about Victoria Street, about how dangerous that the drive over tram stops that exist on Victoria Street are. We also know that those clearways are like proving troublesome for traders. People are not stopping. It's not a nice place to sit on the street and have a drink and spend your money in businesses. So there are lots of opportunities here. But as Councillor Harrison has said, these opportunities have existed for a long time and they haven't been taken up.
30 seconds.
I wanted to thank my two colleagues to my left who I think drove this report coming to us, and also officers for pulling it together, and even more members of the Disability Advisory Committee who, as Councillor Harrison said, have been lobbying for upgrades for a really, really long time. And I'm sorry, we don't have more to report to them.
Councillor, Deputy Mayor Harrison. Anyone else want to speak to this? Councillor Crossland.
Thank you very much. I'd firstly just like to say yes, thank you very much for the detailed report from officers. It's very much appreciated. While it's great to see the level of detail, it's incredibly disappointing to see how many things have not been addressed in such a long time. And I know myself and Councillor Harrison will be working closely with the Disability Advisory Committee in seeking to address this where possible and amplifying the voices of our community to seek address. Thank you.
Anyone else like to speak? Okay, would you like to exercise your right of reply? Okay, put it to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That has passed unanimously. Moving right along, 7.4 C1830, Contract Award Graffiti Management. Are there any questions to officers? Councillor Gomez. Brett, Sam, welcome. Councillor Gomez, far away.
Just a simple question. In the November period last year, we made a motion to basically increase the amount of graffiti expenditure to make sure we could cope with the increased demands for graffiti removal throughout Yarra. My understanding is that that number is still the case here. Just confirming that.
Thank you for your question, Councillor. Through you, Mayor. Yes, there's no proposed to the change of the budget in this process. That will be through the budget conversations you're having shortly.
Any other questions? Councillor Aston.
Hey, Brett. Could you just give us a few of the key points, just to refresh my memory for people who haven't read the report, about the key points of difference between this contract and the previous contract and why we've sought those differences in service levels, etc., and how that will benefit the community?
Yeah, thank you for your question, Councillor. Through you, Mayor. It aligns directly with our new graffiti management framework timeframes. Sorry, I've forgotten half of your question, sorry. The changes. So it's an opt-out other than an opt-in. So it gives us a quicker response time to remove graffiti. We're up to 3 metres instead of 2 metres, so it gives us greater coverage in height. Yep, faster 24 hours response times, hotspots patrols, precinct patrols increased, so shorter turnaround to remove graffiti from all of those spots.
Any other questions? Would anyone like to move the officer recommendation? Councillor Aston, seconded Councillor Gomez. Councillor Aston, you've got 3 minutes to speak to this, starting now.
I won't need 3 minutes. I think this is a vastly superior contract to the previous one that we've had. The fact that it matches the graffiti management framework ensures that we have all those benefits that Brett just outlined. Graffiti is a very, very difficult thing to manage in this city. It is a perpetual problem. It is also a point of difference between people. Some people love it, some people hate it, but overwhelmingly people are very happy with the increase in service that we have seen over the past year, and I know the majority of the community is really keen to see that continue, and I think that this contract is a much better way of achieving those community expectations. So I think we should sign off on this contract and support it.
Councillor Gomez.
I echo everything that Councillor Aston said. I want to make a personal thank you to the contractors. They were very diligent and very good at removing quite toxic graffiti and stickers and so on and so forth through Edinburgh Gardens. Edinburgh Gardens is a jewel in Yarra and should be kept that way as a peaceful place for people to come and spend their time. So I agree with Councillor Aston. It's a much better contract. Our commitment to removing the worst of the graffiti stays, and I ask my fellow councillors to support this contract renewal.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak to this matter? No? Well, then there's no right of reply. I'll move to a vote. All those in favour of this graffiti contract, please raise your hand. That is, we've got Davies, Gomez, Ho, McKenzie, Jolly, Harrison, Crossland and Aston. All those opposed, please raise your hand. Councillor Wade, that is passed. Before we move on to the next agenda item, some of the councillors are requesting a 5-minute break. So unless there's any massive opposition, we'll enter into that 5-minute break now. We're up to 7.5, co-health advocacy update. Are there any questions to officers? I've got Councillor Mackenzie first, then me. Welcome, officers.
Thank you. Thanks for the submission. I was wondering, now that the submissions are in, has the council been invited to provide any verbal submissions or additional submissions, and will they do that?
I can confirm, yes, the correspondence has gone through and our advocacy has gone through. We have received no correspondence back inviting us to give evidence or testify. And I don't think there are arrangements in place for that.
Maybe the submission was just, did it?
I've got a question to the officers. So we're expecting the review to report back next month or this month. Yet during the course of the break, the pharmacy services ended at Collingwood. Have you got any more information as to why that happened? Because it was a big surprise to the local community.
So Council received written advice on 30 January from the CoHealth CEO, Nicole Bartholomew, advising us that this is, I'm quoting her directly, the pharmacy is owned and operated by the licensed pharmacist, Integrated Pharmacy Services, and after many years of working with CoHealth to keep the service viable, both organisations have reached the conclusion that the pharmacy cannot operate sustainably, and IPS has confirmed that the service will close. That's the formal answer that we got from the CEO of CoHealth. It is also notable that the Commonwealth bridging funding of $1.5 million was hypothecated towards GP services and didn't include the provision of the pharmacy, which is, of course, disappointing for the community. So look, the council in its submission did really note how it wants to see the continuation of an integrated bulk build multidisciplinary model that has been so relied on by low-income residents, people in social housing, and many of whom have complex health needs and comorbidities. So it's very disappointing.
Thank you. Councillor Mackenzie.
Just to follow up on that, so in addition to PBS payments that are made by the federal government to pharmaceuticals, what sort of payments do governments normally provide to pharmacies?
The pharmacy model in Australia is typically, it's the pharmaceutical benefits scheme, which is subsidised by the Commonwealth government, but they don't directly fund the pharmacists in the typical model. That's what was so unique about the co-health model, because it was a community-led, community health model with a pharmacy inbuilt within the service, which was so unique. Typically, otherwise, pharmacies might be inside a hospital service. That's the only other place normally. Otherwise, they're independent businesses or part of a franchise or chain.
So was there a funding cut that led to the pharmacy not being able to run, or is it a decision made by CoHealth solely?
From the information we've received, it's a management decision. So this is a decision of management about the viability of their operations. That is all we have been informed, and that is what we have to take on the record as has been communicated to us.
Thank you. Really interesting that. Any other questions? Okay, we're looking for a way forward. Would anyone like to move the officer recommendation? Councillor Mackenzie, anyone like to second it? I'll second it. Yeah, Councillor Davies, yeah. Councillor Mackenzie, would you like to speak to that? You've got 3 minutes if you do.
Yeah, thank you. So this just notes the advocacy efforts so far, which have been extensive. So thank you to the council and councillors for the role in that, and also the submission that has been made to the independent review. I want to pull out a couple of things from that submission because I think they're important to talk about. So that review was obviously announced after shock announcements made by CoHealth in October, and it was in this room that community members came together in Fitzroy Town Hall for a meeting supported by the council, run by the mayor and myself, and they made one thing really clear to us, which is just how important community health is. Years and years and years ago, the World Health Organization declared a declaration of Alma Ata on primary health, affirmed that health is a fundamental human right, that inequality in health outcomes is unacceptable, and that primary health care must be delivered as close as possible. Unfortunately, our data shows, despite best efforts, that health for all has not yet been achieved in Yarra, and the submission highlights only 27% of Yarra residents say their health needs are fully met. 16% of residents in the survey year didn't access a GP the year before because of cost, and that rises to 39% for low-income households, and about 1/3 for people with disabilities and 1/4 for the LGBTQIA plus residents. And this submission is really important. It's not abstract. It speaks directly to the lived experiences of people in Collingwood and Fitzroy, where community health has been embedded in this community for over 150 years. We see that 12,000 low-income patients across Yarra stood to lose vital services, but it's clear that impact extends far beyond just those individuals. Community health affects everybody, even the people who never walk through the door benefit from its presence. It supports neighbourhood stability and improves health outcomes, and reduces pressure on emergency departments. And we know that that we bank the economic and social benefits of community health. So that's why I think this submission really matters, that it comes from a level of government that is so close to community, so uniquely placed to speak to the cumulative impacts of service withdrawal, not just for those individual patients, but for our entire neighbourhood. I'm really looking forward to the outcomes of this review.
30 seconds.
And I want to thank all the other submitters. I heard something like 300 people put in submissions, or organisations, and my hope is that this outcome strengthens, not weakens, our community health, and that we see community voice back in our community health, running those community centres by community for community. Thank you very much.
Councillor Davies.
Nothing to add. I think that was pretty comprehensive from Councillor Mackenzie.
Anyone else? Thank you. Anyone else like to speak to the Councillor Gomez?
I just want to echo the comments of both, Councillor Mackenzie. It was great to see people power come to the fore, over 500 people, probably 600 people, coming to Fitzroy Town Hall, thanks to the efforts of Councillor Mackenzie and the Mayor and other councillors. I know I tried to drag half of Fitzroy North down with me. It was a great day. And it's good to see that the federal government responded to provide some funding and some space for the community and for Yarra Council, amongst others, to provide a submission about why we think co-health is so important. Let me finish by saying that I look forward to Councillor Mackenzie making a campaign promise to restore co-health to the community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak on this matter? Councillor Wade.
Yes. So again, thank you, officers, for the report and for the submission. I think you've noted up front that it's kind of consistent with the terms of reference, so it doesn't necessarily cover all bases. It covers what was asked for in the federal government's review. I think we can all agree that the co-health services are just absolutely vital to our community, and I think you've spelt that out at a high data level really well. I certainly know that since the announcement, I've received just like untold number of messages about these services. I was particularly sad to see the pharmacy close. I had people reaching out to me about their methadone service and just saying it was the only place they ever felt respected and like they were treated in a dignified way when receiving methadone. So I think that really speaks to the community pharmacy model, which I think is a bygone era. I think this was the last one. That's a really sad thing, and I'm really sad that that couldn't be preserved given all of the community furor around the closure of the Collingwood Clinic more generally. 12,500 people without a doctor, including some of Yarra's most at-risk residents. We know that both the Fitzroy and Collingwood locations are extremely proximate to our public housing communities. We know that we've got a huge number of people with disabilities, with mental health issues, etc., who are accessing these services. And I think, again, staff, you've captured really well that these people are going to be thrust onto hospital emergency departments and acute services if they don't have that primary level of healthcare. It's still depressing, and so I don't really have a way to end it end it positively. But I hope that this review comes to something and that we preserve the remaining community services. I know that that site in Collingwood has proven particularly valuable. There is a huge needle exchange that goes on there as well, and the fact that the neighbours are supportive of that in that environment, that is not something that we see everywhere, to me says that that particular site on Hoddle Street is also really important. And so I hope through this process we can find a way that the state and federal governments come together and fund the services that we need them to fund, including the infrastructure itself, which I understand is the state rather than the feds. So fingers crossed for a good outcome.
Thank you. Anyone else? Deputy Mayor Harrison.
I'm just going to make one simple point here. I work with people that provide care in some of our, one of our top hospitals in Melbourne. And when I spoke to them about this, they stressed the importance of primary health care, that actually it brings a much better return for our health dollar. And, that means that those people who have access primary care hopefully will not end up at the emergency department of one of our hospitals. This is really important that we sustain this service, and I want to thank my colleagues for, I by no means suggest I've done anything much on this, but I really want to acknowledge the work that others have been doing on this and the officers for that really strong submission that's been prepared.
Councillor Aston.
I'd just like to point out something in the letter from the CEO that forms part of this review submission that I think is really, really important and shouldn't go overlooked or unmentioned, which is urging the review to closely examine the rationale, decision-making process and governance arrangements that influence these service changes in the first place. This event happened because decisions were made that led to those events. So why did those decisions get made? How did they get made that way? So I think this is a really, really important part that cannot get overlooked, because you can throw money to fix a problem, but if the underlying reasons that cause those problems to occur in the first place are not fixed, it's a waste of money. So if we want CoHealth restored, we want CoHealth back to being the community-led health organisation that it is, that is long-lasting, sustainable and back to supporting those vulnerable members of our community, then we need to ensure that these problems don't happen again. So I think that particular passage of the report is really, really important, and I thank the CEO for putting in, and it should not be overlooked.
I just want to add a couple of points myself. I think if you look at the big picture here, this was the biggest attack on the poorest and sickest people in the inner city in all my time in politics in Victoria since 1992. There's been specific issues, schools being closed, hospitals being closed, nurses being sacked, so on and so forth under the Kennett regime and other governments, including Labor governments. But this takes this is gold medal bad. 12,500 of the poorest and sickest children, elderly and people in general losing their access to bulk billing GPs, which means for most of them, no GPs, and also all the other issues. We started this campaign here at Fitzroy Town Hall in essence, and I've got to say as a warning to the federal government, to the state government, particularly to the Board of CoHealth, we will finish it if we have to. What's happened is that because of the people power pressure, as Councillor Gomez said, the government stepped in and a review has been commissioned. And because we're fair people, the vast majority of the community said, fine, we'll wait. Let's see what they come back with. But let there be no misunderstanding about this. We want to see bulk billing GPs re-established permanently in the community health centres, the three that have been were affected. We want to see the counselling services returned. We want to see the pharmacy services returned. We want the building in Collingwood to be refurbished or rebuilt. It is a mess, but don't use it as an excuse to get rid of it, to fill the black hole of the board. We need to reform the board for the reasons that Councillor Aston said. We need to bring back community members on that board. It's outrageous that there's none left when there used to be. And we'll be watching very, very closely. We're patient, we'll wait. We'll let the review do its business, but if they come back with anything less of what the community desire, we will be taken to the streets again. There will be more public meetings, there will be petitions, there will be occupations, and there will be a fight that will put the East-West Tunnel and Richmond Secondary College and the Fitzroy Pool campaign to shame, because they were buildings and institutions where there are alternatives, even though they were very, very bad things. This is something that there's no replacement for. When you take GPs from sick, poor kids, it's literally a life and death question. So we say to the feds and to the state, we're watching very, very closely, but in particular to the board. And the state do have control over this board because they give them contracts like confetti for projects all over the state. They can use that influence to get these cuts reversed, and let's just see what happens. But we're on yellow alert at the community over the next few weeks. Excuse me. Anyone else? Okay, Deputy Mayor Harrison, did you move this? Okay. Well, we'll go straight to a vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That is passed unanimously. We're moving on to 7.6, Governance Report. Any questions to officers? We've got 2 submissions before we go to questions to officers. 2 registrations, one from Anna Leeworthy. Welcome, Anna. Are you here? Okay, Patrick Cummings. Come to the front, please, Patrick. Welcome, Patrick. Just press that button and you get 3 minutes. Yeah, that's right. There's a big button. If you press it, the red light will turn on.
Good evening, Mayor Jolly, councillors and attendees. Sorry, bear with me, this isn't my favourite activity. My name is Patrick Cummings. I'm the owner of Shades, a business located in Adolph Street in Cremorne. I'm here speaking on behalf of not just our business, but the 80% at a minimum of property owners and residents in our street who formally supported this petition for a name change. The current street name is widely considered offensive and out of step with today's community values. With the recent spate of anti-Semitism throughout Victoria and Australia in general, we feel this topic is as relevant now as ever. That may sound like a broad statement, but for us it shows up in a really very real everyday situations. In running our business, we share our address constantly with clients, suppliers, contractors, etc., and the name Adolph is rarely said without a reaction. It's always followed by an uncomfortable pause and typically a follow-up comment. It immediately shifts the tone of a conversation in a way that feels not only unprofessional but extremely awkward and uncomfortable. That's not the kind of first impression any business or even person wants to make when engaging in conversation. Throughout the process of gathering 80% support of this petition from the property owners and residents in the street, the response was not reluctant or divided, it was overwhelmingly in favour. People were not just willing to formally sign, they were eager. The most common comment we heard again and again was anything would be better than Adolph. There's a clear and strong majority view that the name does not reflect the values of our local community today. This is not the view of only our business trying to make a statement, it is clearly the collective community view. Our joint letter of support has been tabled and we are very grateful to have already received encouraging responses from several councillors and the Mayor already. On behalf of the strong majority of our street, I want to be clear this is a change our community wants. It's a practical step that will support local businesses and better reflect the values of our area today. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Patrick. Are there any questions, councillors, to Phil Delosa, who's the relevant officer for this agenda item? Patrick, if you can just sit back in the thing. Thank you. Thank you. Any questions to, no? Can we just get, we really need an answer. If you want to ask a question, just say yes or no. No? Okay.
Sorry, Phil. I was trying to find it in the report, but I can't. So just in regards to the renaming of Adolph Street, so the residents have got 80% support. This recommendation is to go to a community consultation. Can you just outline the timeframes and the process that we will go through and when we're likely to have a decision on that and what happens?
Thank you, Councillor Aston, through you, Mayor. Basically, the community consultation will involve properties in Adolph Street and properties surrounding Adolph Street. So we've highlighted 60. We've gone to the responsible authority, being Geographic Names Victoria, to just say, have we covered enough of the area to do consultation with? So that's one part. The second part is we would check with the Wurundjeri Woi-wurrung Corporation just to see if the name Wurrun is acceptable, and they have given that advice to
Anna and Patrick. So we will just check that. And there's some consultation we would do with emergency services to get their views on it. They're a really important part of any renaming. So that's typically what we do.
Thank you. Any other questions? Would anyone like... Councillor Austin.
Sorry, can you just tell us, so how long will it take until this process is finished?
We estimate 2 to 3 months, so we're aiming to get back as quickly as possible. If we can't make April, we will make May.
Thank you. Any other questions? Okay, would any councillor like to move the officer recommendation, the governance report? Deputy Mayor Harrison, seconded by Councillor Wade. Deputy Mayor Harrison, you've got 3 minutes starting now.
I don't have a lot to say to this, but I will thank the officers for the work that they've done to prepare the targeted infrastructure upgrades to improve accessibility. So the table that's been provided towards the back of the report, which is a response to a notice of motion, or sorry, not a notice of motion, a motion at an earlier council meeting. So thank them for the work. I don't have anything further to say other than that.
Thank you. Councillor Wade.
Yes, I'll also thank officers also for putting together all of the ALGA NGA motions, which look good, and to thank Mr Cummings and Ms Leithworthy for their work in getting support from 80% of residents to put the Adult Street proposal before us. I don't think there's much I can add to what Mr Cummings said, but that's quite an effort to go to get 80% support, and also to approach the Wurundjeri Corporation yourselves. So I just wanted to compliment those efforts, and we will see what happens next in consultation. So thank you everybody involved from the community and staff on putting together this report.
Councillors want to speak on this matter? Councillor Gomez.
Thank you. Thank you, Mayor. I just want to reflect on the reappointment of Ms Ma, or Ms Kylie Ma, as the chair of the Audit and Risk Committee, as well as the 2 other independent advisors, Lisa Tripodi and Jeffrey Rigby. Mayor Jolly and myself are continuing on as the councillor delegates for the Audit and Risk Committee. I just want to, reassure fellow councillors that the appointment of Kylie as chair and the other 2 independents is very important to us. I have observed up close how much rigour they put into the questions they ask of our officers, our executive team, and how they grill the reports given to them by our internal and external auditors. Just want to make that point.
Thank you. Anyone else like to speak to this agenda item? Would you like to exercise your right of reply, Deputy Mayor? Okay, we'll put it to the vote. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That is passed unanimously. We move on to notice of motion. We've got notice of motion flag review policy. We've got 4 people registered to speak. The first one is Kevin Fox. Kevin, welcome. Thanks for your patience. Just when you sit down, just press the button and you've got 3 minutes. Thanks, mate.
Just before I start, I think John O'Callaghan was someone who was listed to speak. He's actually he's at choir practice in the city. Couldn't get it, so I can give some words that John's passed on to me, if that's okay, at the end of when I do my thing.
Yeah, no worries. No worries.
Yeah, my name's Kevin Fox, 30-year resident of Richmond in my current stint. The email from the council which I got about attending and speaking at this meeting says to address the Mayor directly and respectfully. I will try and do so, hopefully in a better way, Stephen, than you did on Australia Day when you claimed to speak on behalf of almost everyone living in the City of Yarra, everyone who works for the City of Yarra, and definitely all of our 9 councillors. Sorry, look, I don't think that's the case, mate. And as for the record, you stated that anyone who disagrees with you, I don't watch Sky News, and we are genuine residents with real and unheard views. We're not neo-Nazis, we're not racists, we're not even deplorables, I think. But I do talk BS. And as Councillor Sharon probably knows, she'll see us down the ground on a Wednesday night talking BS every happy hour. So just for some context on the issue and why it's important to me, My family have lived continuously for 4 generations in Richmond, with my mum and dad born in Mary Street. My dad marched off the ward down Bridge Road in 1944, not returning to his Richmond family until 1948 when he returned from Hiroshima. My last Richmond uncle, from 4 Richmond generations back to the 1890s, died at 96 in our Mary Street house about 10 years ago. They all loved our country and they all loved our flag. In terms of the flag policy, therefore, I and others in the circle support Councillor Andrew Davies in his initiative to get the ball rolling to initiate a report and hopefully a review with genuine community consultation on Yarra's flag policy. This 9-year-old document, implemented by the then Greens-led council, has seen a flag torn down from Richmond and other town halls on Australia Day. The policy and related actions on our flag disrespects the strong views of many, and I'd suggest the majority of local residents. Our current council was elected in 2024 on the basis of bringing common sense back to Town Hall, focusing on local issues of importance to residents. Only one councillor remains from when this policy was introduced. It is therefore timely to revisit the policy to better reflect the views of local residents in 2025. This can be done while acknowledging and supporting Indigenous people in many ways, and we can continue to do so.
Thanks, Kevin. Thanks,
I think
Kevin.
my time's done.
No, you finished back on time. Thank you. Thanks very much. The next person is Peter Razos. Welcome, Peter. Looks like you've had a good break.
Yes. Good evening, Mayor and councillors. It's been a little while. I speak today as a resident who's already made a formal request for the Greek national flag to be flown on 2 significant dates, 25th of March and 28th of October. This request was supported in writing by the Greek Orthodox Archdiocese of Australia and acknowledged by council officers in 2023. My point today is simple. If council already flies flags for other cultural groups on their important dates, then the same opportunity should exist for all communities, fairly, transparently, consistently. The Greek community has contributed to the city of Yarra for more than 150 years. Richmond, Collingwood, Fitzroy and Northcote were among the earliest centres of Greek settlement in Australia. Greek migrants built businesses, churches, schools, cultural institutions that helped shape the multicultural identity of a Yarra proudly celebrates today. So when other groups are recognised through flag raising, but the Greek community, one of the oldest and the largest in Melbourne, is not, it raised a reasonable question of equity. This is why I support this motion. A proper review of the civic flag policy is the right step. It should ensure that all nationalities, including Greeks, have a clear and fair pathway to request their flag be flown on days of national significance such as Independence Days or commemorative events. This is not about special treatment, it's about equal treatment in a multicultural city. Thank you.
Thanks, Peter. The next person is Oliver Crombach, if I pronounce that right. Oliver, are you here? No worries, Kevin. Thanks for that. And you said John's not able to make it either, yeah? Okay, no worries. Well, we move on to the motion itself. We've got to move, obviously, Councillor Davies mover. Got a seconder? Okay, that motion lapses. We'll move on to motion 2, 8.2, Vic Health.
Mayor Jolly, I'm declaring conflict.
Conflict of interest, yep. There are no registrations to speak. Councillor Wade, it's your motion. Have you got a seconder? Councillor Harrison, Deputy Mayor Harrison, I should say. Councillor Wade? Yes, of course. Councillor Wade, you've got 3 minutes starting now.
Yes, so I think a lot of us probably last year when we saw the news that Vic Health was set to be absorbed into the Department of Health were really sad to see that news. Vic Health has been an organisation that has done incredible work over a really long time, and I'm looking forward to hearing Councillor Harrison's thoughts on this, as well, as I know she's quite close to this sector. For every dollar spent on public health, early intervention and prevention, $14.30 is saved on future health costs by averting more costly and chronic health conditions down the line. Like, that's a pretty incredible statistic. Like, you just don't get many things that you can spend $1 and save $14.30 later. More than the economic cost, though, it's what it means to people's lives. I think most people are probably familiar with the fact that our Brunswick MP for our northern suburbs in the city of Yarra recently announced his cancer diagnosis, and in doing so he spoke about how if he had have worn longer pants as a young man, he probably would have avoided the really horrible and costly treatment that he's had to go through now, and pain and suffering for his whole family. And there are so many examples like that. We know that Vic Health was active in the early days against tobacco, Sun Smart campaigns over the years, but also like healthy lifestyle campaigns, healthy eating campaigns. From the local government point of view, we obviously have a lot to do with healthy living and getting outside and walking and cycling and whatnot. And Vic Health over the years have run public health campaigns to just keep people informed about their choices and how they affect their lives long term. So for the benefit of people's lives and their families, getting that information early matters. And we've seen since the announcement at the end of last year, just like a huge number of experts and academics and people who have been impacted by Vic Health, organisations, small organisations in our own community who have received Vic Health grants coming out and saying, hey, this organisation is really important to us, its independence is really important to us, and we want it to continue on. We've also seen organisations from overseas come in and say, hey, you're so lucky that you have this preventative health body, they're really leading. And it's not every organisation that gets that kind of response. And so, I call on my colleagues to support Vic Health and say we want it to continue. So thank you.
Deputy Mayor Harrison.
Just a brief mention of my background. I spent 9 years working in the School of Public Health and Preventive Medicine, finishing up there just before I was elected as a councillor to this council. So this is an area that's really close to my heart. I've worked with some of the top public health professionals in the country, and I see this as a really retrograde step. I'm going to actually quote the Council of Academic Public Health Institutions Australasia, who called on the Victorian Government to urgently reverse its decision to absorb Vic Health into the State Department of Health last year, warning that the move will significantly weaken Victoria's prevention systems at a time of escalating health challenges. This decision will undermine nearly 4 decades of world-leading work in health promotion, disease prevention, and population health and well-being. And I mean, the point here actually is that Vic Health has been one of Australia's most effective prevention agencies for 38 years. It came out through bipartisan support from both the Liberal and Labor parties. And, you know, we're in a situation here where something that has been a really important thing could be lost. So I don't think I can say it any better than Kafia did. And, you know, this is not a good step, so I'm pleased that Councillor Wade has brought this here today, and I'm very happy to support it.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak? Would anyone like to speak on this motion? Councillor McKenzie.
Thank you. I want to be clear from the outset that I agree with a lot of what Councillor Wade said at the beginning about the importance of preventative health, and we heard some of that come through when we talk about community health. But I'd like to explain my position and why I'm going to vote against this motion. It's not the judgments of merits of Vic Health or the importance of prevention. My concern is about whether, where we draw the line and whether this motion is council business, whether it is the right use of this chamber. This council last year adopted an advocacy plan, and we have a very big advocacy year. Being focused on that is going to be really important. When we take advocacy positions in this room, I think they need to be grounded in the direct impacts on people in Yarra and focus on issues that sit within the council's remit and within the council's influence, where council has a clear role or leverage. So by this I mean we just debated an item where the that had to do with partly to do with the 78 tram route. In that is an advocacy priority, but also council is a key stakeholder. Upgrades to on-street public transport involve road space reallocation, local access, amenity, safety, matters that squarely fall within our responsibilities. And this motion is different. I mean, I think it is clearly political in nature, and they have their place, whether they have their place in a council chamber and where we have no direct operational, statutory or place-based role, is what I'm questioning. And I think that is where I am going to draw the line on that. Obviously, I made an announcement earlier this evening. I won't be using this chamber as a proxy for the state election, though. I don't think that serves our council or our community. My focus will be on the lives of people who live in Yarra and ensuring our advocacy efforts are disciplined and targeted and effective. I think that's when we do our best work. So for those reasons, I won't be supporting the motion, but thank you for putting it up.
Thank you. Would anyone else like to speak on this matter? Councillor Aston.
I'll be voting against this, partly for the reason that Councillor Mackenzie just highlighted. I agree that this isn't where we should be putting our effort and resources. But it's also for a broader reason. I actually object to the assumption that the work of Vic Health will no longer continue. In my review of and reading of the Silver Review, that is not the case. The work of Vic Health will continue, just not as a standalone statutory body, but within the Department of Health. And the idea that the function of Vic Health cannot operate successfully within an umbrella that is also health related, I just don't think is genuine. There are many countries around the world without such bodies, and statutory standalone bodies that operate within their Department of Health who have very wildly successful public health campaigns. Countries that have very similar population sizes to Australia, such as Denmark, the Netherlands, Singapore. These are countries that are well known for fantastic public health outcomes, just as Victoria is, but they do it without a standalone body. So my understanding of this is that instead of the government looking at their financial situation and trying to stick their grubby mitts in our pockets for a change, they're actually looking in their own backyard and seeing what they can cut from their expenditure. And it's not very often I agree with the government, but this is actually doing the right thing. So if it was clear that they were closing Vic Health and the work of Vic Health would no longer continue, I might have a different view. But the fact is that there's nowhere that it says that Vic Health and the work of Vic Health will no longer continue. So I think if we can have an effective health service, effective public health responses, effective public health policy, while also making sure that the government is able to operate in a more financially sustainable manner, I think that's worth pursuing. So I won't be supporting this.
Thank you. Anyone else want to speak on this matter? Councillor Wade, would you like to exercise your right of reply?
Yes, I will. Thank you. So firstly, we do have a health and wellbeing plan. Health and wellbeing is very much central to the job of council. We spoke earlier about co-health and about how that is important to council's work, and I would say that Vic Health is the same thing. Vic Health is not some removed body that has nothing to do with councils. Councils can apply for funding from Vic Health. Councils do applying for funding from Vic Health and regularly work together with Vic Health. So I think it is very much relevant to this chamber, the work of this organisation. I also, just to contradict my colleague Councillor Aston, I think that independence is really important for this kind of organisation. They're often critiquing government, they're critiquing big organisations, big business that maybe the government is not able to do in quite the same way. And when you're talking about preventative health, being able to hold, for example, tobacco companies to account is really important, and that's not something that the state government itself can always do. Having independent agencies is incredibly important for that kind of thing. We've also had a whole host of experts come out and say that when preventative health is lumped in with other health costs, it is the first thing to get cut. When you've got a big, hospital budget to deal with, you've got people who have got really serious issues, of course that is where you put the money. So earmarking some money for promotional health funding to say, hey, put on your sunscreen, that's really important. It just won't happen otherwise. We're talking about a couple of letters. This is not a state election campaign. This is not a giant change in Yarra's trajectory. It's saying something that this chamber has done many, many times, which is, can we throw out a few letters in support of an organisation that has done excellent work and has partnered with councils in the past?
Thank you. We'll go to the vote on that. So all those in favour of the motion, of the notice of motion from Councillor Wade and Deputy Mayor Harrison, please raise your hand. Jolly, Harrison, Crossland, Wade, all those opposed? So all in favour, okay. And then obviously that is carried.
Councillor Gomez back.
We can bring Councillor Gomez back now. Is there any possibility? Thanks, Phil. I think one of the officers is gone. So once Councillor Gomez is back, we're going on to the final notice of motion for tonight, which is on the submission to electrical safety regulations review and enhancing our streetscapes. We've got a mover in the form of Councillor Crossland. Is there a seconder for that motion? Councillor Wade. Councillor Crossland, your 3 minutes to speak to your motion starts now.
Thank you very much. So this is just outlining the motion, correct? The intent of the motion, or?
Well, if you can just speak to it. I think we've all read it. It's pretty short. Yeah. Does anybody, let me just put that to the other councillors then. Does anybody want an explanation of what this motion is about? Are we happy to just, you do? Okay, yeah, Councillor Davies is asking for an explanation. Thank you, Councillor Cross.
Not a problem, thank you. The truncated version. So the intent of this motion is to make submission to the review of the electricity safety electric line clearance regulations. So that's in support of proposed reduction for the minimum vegetation clearance distance, calling for an immediate implementation of reduced clearance distance rather than a time-limited or partial trial, emphasising importance of protecting urban canopy, unnecessary canopy loss, and calling for a funded program to underground overhead electricity services modelled on successful approaches undertaken elsewhere in Australia. And it also seeks to highlight the benefits of undergrounding overhead electricity services. There's a broad range of streetscape and environmental benefits that can be associated with that, as well as building maintenance and graffiti removal. Yeah.
Great. You got the gist of it, yep. Your 3 minutes in moving starts now. Thank you.
Thank you. So, across Yarra and Victoria, street trees are routinely chopped back to provide clearance for overhead electricity lines. This often results in lopsided canopies, stressed trees, and far less shade than our streets should have. And over time, these clearance rules quietly limit how big trees can grow and often lead to smaller trees being planted, reducing canopy cover across our neighbourhoods. And as summers get hotter and heat island effects grow, this is affecting our health. It affects how hot our homes become and how we also use our streets. Over the years, we've lost many large trees where clearance requirements couldn't be met due to structural branches having to be removed. This includes the likes of Bridge Road and Swan Street, where much smaller trees have been planted in their place, which will never achieve the same amount of canopy cover as well. We have had some luck in retaining some large canopy trees, such as on Swan Street, where we bundled overhead electricity lines at a few locations, but this isn't always possible. So if supported, this motion and in turn the submission would support more sensible urban clearance rules, reducing it down to 30 centimetres to reduce unnecessary preening, call for immediate reform and not a time-limited trial, push for stronger recognition of tree health, canopy cover and climate resilience, and the motion also calls for a funded program to underground electricity lines, like successful programs elsewhere in Australia. For example, in Perth, over 60% of Perth benefits from undergrounded electricity services. There are also many other examples, such as much of Melbourne and Sydney CBDs, Bendigo, and numerous high streets around the state and elsewhere. Undergrounding could improve the look of our high streets and heritage buildings, make building maintenance and graffiti removal safer and cheaper, which is currently difficult and expensive, with proximity to electricity lines being a key factor. And we all want to increase canopy cover in Yarra, which is particularly important given Yarra currently has one of the lowest canopy cover targets of the M9 inner city councils, which is well below the 30% target set by the state government.
30 seconds.
Thank you. This is an opportunity for council to show leadership and say to the state government and the people of Yarra that we really want the best outcomes for our open forest, for our community, for our businesses and our high street. So I implore my colleagues for their support. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Wade.
Yes, so this is a bit of a no-brainer to me. I think we've all seen the kind of ugly, misshapen trees around City of Yarra. It's not limited to the City of Yarra, where they're kind of having to prune them to go around power lines. And they either end up as like a massive U or kind of wonky. That not only is ugly when we would love our streets to be beautiful and to be pleasant places to be, but it also means that they have less dense shade, they have less foliage for animals to live in, for all the sorts of things that make a city beautiful and livable. It also means that, in the last at least few years, we've had a policy of right tree in the right place, which often means we've got to plant a relatively small tree on a street because it will otherwise get tangled up in power lines. And so it means that instead of planting trees like they did 50 years ago, which have beautiful canopy that shade the street, that make it a pleasant place to be, a pleasant place to walk, a pleasant place to spend some time at a local business and have a beer, we're planting these kind of little pokey trees. And I think Wellington Street is a good example for anybody familiar with Wellington Street. We've got quite a few little trees and they don't really create the shade or the nice pedestrian environment for people. So if we could firstly prune the existing ones less, great, but also if we could be undergrounding more of these wires, if that's something that the government could help invest in, I think that's a really great thing. Anybody who's spent much time overseas will know that Melbourne's mess of wires in the sky is actually quite unusual. This isn't something that most modern cities have. And so I think it is incredibly sensible to take steps in a direction where we free our skies and we free our trees and we make the streets nicer places for everybody. So I support Councillor Crossland's motion.
Thank you. Anyone like to speak on this motion? Councillor Davies.
Yeah, look, I think this is a really interesting motion. Having lived in Richmond for years without any trees on my street and essentially, power lines and internet lines and everything smothering I guess the streetscape. I think this is a really interesting policy. I think it addresses what a broad amount of people would like to see across the political spectrum. I think they just want to see cleaner streets, right? And it does address this canopy issue at the same time. I think there is some real, I do think it's a sensible approach. It addresses people's needs in the inner city and in particular in Cremorne and in Richmond. I think it's got some value and some merit. It's just as simple as that. And I think that would be shared across quite a number of people, across age ranges as well. So I'm happy to support it.
I'll speak next. I think it does have merit, and that's why we've already put it in our council policy. It's in the advocacy roadmap. I don't know if people have been asleep. It's already in our advocacy roadmap. So I don't know why we've even got this nom. We're doing this already. In fact, the regulations, the draft regulations coming down from the state government reflect some of the positions that we've lobbied them on this matter. So we're already, not only have we got it in our roadmap, but the state government, probably through gritted teeth, are listening to us, and it's semi-reflected in their draft regs. Also, the second bit of this motion, which hasn't really been touched on, but I think is extremely important for all councillors to think about, is this basically saying that we're going to take this policy and look at it to put it in the budget. Now, we've got the tightest budget we've ever had because of cost shifting, because of rate capping, because of inflation, because of monopolisation of capitalism, basically, where only one company bidded for the bin collection. We're in really, really difficult situation, and the budget has to be dealt with holistically because everybody will want something. Everybody will want something, and if we come to this council meeting every month prior to the budget discussion, pulling out very, very, I mean, who wouldn't want underground power lines? Obviously, we want more public housing. We want, zero unemployment. We want zero inflation. We want lots of things. We want cleaner streets, but we can't do everything. And whatever we decide in the budget has to be looked at holistically. We can't just have this norm saying, oh, you know, we're going to do it on this, because then we can all come with our pet projects every single month between now and the budget. So that's the second reason I oppose this. First one, because we're already doing it, and the second one, because it's a very, very bad precedent for the budget discussion, which I think has to be done in the way that I described it. That's all I have to say. Does anyone else want to speak on this matter, for or against? Okay, Councillor Crossland, would you like to exercise your right of reply?
Thank you. I appreciate the feedback that has just been given on this, and yes, it is in our advocacy roadmap. I'm not suggesting otherwise. But the breadth of what this notice of motion outlines is far greater than what is in the roadmap. And I'm looking to other councils who are doing a lot more work in this space at this point in time, such as Yarra, and looking at that going, how can we do that? How can we do something that's going to really complement that and then some? Something that's more relevant to our municipality, which has less private open space where big trees can be accommodated. Ours are primarily going to be accommodated in the public realm, interfered with by overhead services. And if we don't look to address that, we're simply not going to achieve the kind of canopy outcomes that we want, that our community wants and keeps asking us for. I also note that there's implications of this, as I touched on, for the maintenance of buildings, particularly along our high streets. We've got more high streets than pretty much any other municipality in the state, most of which are lined with heritage buildings that are incredibly expensive to undertake maintenance on, whether that's painting, whether that's graffiti removal, something that this council cares a lot about. It's hindered by its proximity to overhead services. And we should be looking at opportunities to co-fund that with the state government and put more pressure on them to fully fund it as well, obviously. But if we don't have that in there and ask for that, it's simply not going to happen. And I'll just also note, we did receive a report last year in regards to the graffiti management framework, where the current cost to clean one building is $10,000 to $20,000. It would cost $3 million to clean all of Brunswick Street upper level just once. That cost would come right down if things were undergrounded incrementally over time.
3 seconds.
And make it easier for people to maintain their property. Thank you.
And sorry for not seeing the 30-second warning. Apologies for that. But you finished on time. So we'll go put that to the vote. So we've got the motion from Councillor Crossland and Wade. All those in favour, please raise your hand. Councillor Wade, Councillor Crossland, Councillor Davies. All those opposed, please raise your hand. Gomez, Hope, Mackenzie, Jolly, Harrison and Aston. That is lost. We'll move on to petitions and letters. Petitions and joint letters, I should say. I know we've got 2 petitions from Councillor Gomez. He's the Councillor for Petitions. So do you want to go with the first one, please?
Thank you, Mayor. So the first one is 9.1, a petition for, I'll just read it out. It's a petition containing 36 signatures from residents requesting that Council improve the laneway at the rear of Neen Street in Fitzroy North by levelling the lovely bluestones that are there to improve the safety of pedestrians, cyclists and vehicles that utilise the laneway on a regular basis to access their homes. That's it.
So you're moving that the officers, that we accept that petition and be referred to the relevant officers?
Correct, yes, thank you.
For processing. Seconded by Councillor Wade. All those in favour, please raise your hand. That is accepted. Move on, please, to your second petition.
I have a second petition, Mayor Jolly. It's come to me very late, so just bear with me. It's a petition to oppose Yarra Council's plans for Wellington Street in general. There are about 550 signatures here. I'll read out the preamble because I can't really summarise it, so I'll just read it out. In late 2025, Yarra City Council released its proposed plans for the development of Wellington Street in Collingwood, Stage 3, and Clifton Hill, Stage 4, under the project Building a Safer Wellington Street. We, the community, strongly oppose this project, both Stage 3 and 4, especially in relation to the closure of Wellington Street to cars, the diversion of cars onto local side streets, and the loss of car parking spaces. Any upgrades to Wellington Street should retain the current traffic flows, with changes limited to maintenance of existing infrastructure, such as the resurfacing of roads, repainting of bike lanes, and the potential addition of bike boxes at traffic lights. There's about 550 signatures here, roughly, and I think the lead petitioner is in the audience tonight. So I commend this petition to my fellow councillors.
Thank you. We've got a seconder just to accept. Just for those new councillors and anyone in the audience, when we accept a petition, doesn't mean we agree with it or disagree with it. We're just accepting it. It'll be processed, and the decision on this matter and all other matters around petitions will be made at a later date. So it could literally say we want to chop off the head of the mayor and Councillor Wade, and we would accept the petition, even though we probably don't. We definitely wouldn't want that to happen to me or Councillor Wade. Well, maybe me, but definitely not Councillor Wade. So do we have a seconder? Does it mean you have to support the petition? Councillor McKenzie, yeah. So we refer it to the relevant officer for processing. We accept the petition. All those, Councillor Wade, do you want to?
Going to say remember to call for the vote.
Yep. All those in favour? Thank you. And apparently someone's got a joint letter. Councillor McKenzie?
Yeah, it's a petition joint letter. So this is a joint letter signed by 85 local residents in Clifton Hill. It relates to the soccer pavilion water tank. They're asking for, once the pavilion is in place, which started happening today, to remove the cement and mesh enclosure of the water tank and move it to the rear of the pavilion, and they're also asking for a pedestrian entrance to the Yambler Reserve just west of the locked vehicle gate. It also is accompanied with a online petition of 201 signatures, which I will cannot be tabled in council, but I'll send that through to the relevant officers via the right channels.
All right, I'll second that, so that we accept the petition and assign it to the relevant officer for processing. All those in favour? That petition or whatever it is, joint letter. Thank you. We'll move on to questions without notice. Are there any questions without notice? Deputy Mayor Harrison.
Can officers provide an update in relation to the resolution on agenda item 7.8 of the council meeting of 16 December 2025 regarding e-bike share? Has the CEO written to the shared e-bike operator Lime to remind the operator of their obligations under the shared e-bike agreement around resolution timelines for inappropriately parked e-bikes, and requesting the operator comply with Yarra's request for detailed information about complaints?
CEO?
Maybe Mary Osman.
Mary Osman?
Through you, Deputy Mayor, I will need to confirm the letter, but there's been various conversations with the managers of Lime. As recently as the other day, there was a reminder to the operators of certain non-compliances. We are still waiting to hear back. As soon as I have a response, I will let the councillors know. Thank you. One more question.
So this is just in relation to Smith's Reserve and accessibility. So Yarra resident and disability advocate Shane Hyhoric raised concerns with the accessibility of Smith's Reserve after the upgrade of this park last year, specifically the paths. This is not mentioned in the quarterly report. Can officers provide an update on this?
Mr. Hewitt?
Thank you, Mayor. Councillors, yes, Mr. Hyhoric raised it with us. We had an independent look at it, and whilst it's not concrete, it's true, it's not completely and utterly accessible. We've tried to balance both the accessibility of the city with aesthetic views. So at this point, there's no further plan to update or upgrade those paths to concrete, which is what Mr. Hyhoric wants. But of course, it's always open to the council to invest further in that reserve if it wishes. Thank you, Mayor.
Just to double back, we've got a response from the CEO on your first question to Deputy Mayor Harrison.
Thank you, Mayor. Councillor Harrison, I can confirm I did write to Lime on the 18th of December.
Thank you.
A question that notice from Councillor Davies.
Yes, it's a dual question. Maybe it'll make it easier if I ask both at once. In respect to the Have Your Say and the parking curbside community engagement, do we have a timeline for both of those, I believe, sometime this year?
Thank you. Ms Osmond?
Through you, Mayor, I can respond to the curbside and parking strategy. We are working with the working group of council and we are aiming to have a consultation process around mid-year. I'm not promising that it is July, but we will work with the working group to make sure that we can move that as quickly as possible. Thank you.
And the other question from Councillor Davies, does anyone have an answer to that?
Thank you for the question, Councillor. If you're referring to the community engagement policy, that will come back to this chamber around mid this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions without notice? One more.
It's just in respect to our activity strips, which I understand are state government operated or cleaned. Do we have an update on where the status is at the moment? Because I know Swan Street was cleaned. Is that the case for all the other state-based roads in Yarra?
CEO?
I have to take it on notice. I do note that over the weekend, Alexandra Parade, Victoria Parade were both mowed. Hoddle Street, I'm not sure at what time, but in the last week or so has been mowed also, or to about 2 weeks ago. So no, I'm not aware of their timeframe. We've got a meeting with senior DTP, a very regular meeting where we press upon them the importance of this stuff. So we'll try to get a schedule.
Just a follow on,
yeah.
Just small. Yep. Just as a part of that, because we're getting a lot of traders, particularly on Swan Street, Tighter Street, because of the lack of cleaning by state government, a lot of the dust and waste coming out of those roads has ended up on our footpaths. I guess on the. So I would like to ask two questions. Is it possible for us to follow up and clean our activity strips on the back of that? Is that something we can do to sort of address, traders' concerns about the mess that's basically flowed onto our footpaths and onto their doorsteps and into their businesses in some cases?
Yeah, I think the best way to do that is let's get you some information about what the cleaning schedule is in the vicinity. It'd be really helpful if you could share the concerns of the traders so that we can see them and understand them, and to work out whether or not there's any sort of causal factors. Yeah.
Thank you. Any other questions that notice? Okay, we move on. Are there any delegates' reports from anybody? Any general business? Any urgent business? There are no confidential items, so the meeting is closed 4 minutes past 9. Thank you, everybody.